And I'm not an expert in it, but there's a lot of questions that said perhaps he wasn't drunk.
You also write in the book that there was a chance that you were to be in Paris at the time of her death. A bunch of you drew some straws as well. And, you know, obviously you didn't get to go, but what was your take on her death? You know, obviously there's still 25 years later, there's all these conspiracy theories about what happened. Did this caused by the paparazzi? Was it covered up? In your opinion, what happened?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. When we drew straws, Christina, we were drawing straws because we didn't want to go. We'd had a hard summer. We were tired. You know, sometimes you're working 18 hours a day, and that's just part of the job. So we drew straws, and nobody wanted to go. And the person that went was a guy called Kes Wingfield, and somebody drew out the short straw and said, "Well, I guess that's Kes's." So we all said, "Right, it's his," and he went. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Kes. But this is the thing, Christina, with the conspiracy theories. I mean, I was involved in the coroner's inquest 10 years after into her death and gave evidence and various bits of evidence. But the thing that it all hinged around Henry Paul, who was drunk, right? Now he's drunk because we were told he was drunk at the first trial. So when it became apparent that wasn't as clear as everybody thought, with the monoxide in the blood and the various things that happen, and I'm not an expert in it, but there's a lot of questions that said perhaps he wasn't drunk. Now, this gets me on to my next thing, that Kes Wingfield and Trevor Rees-Jones, the bodyguards who were there at the time, who I knew very well, I'd worked with them for years, very professional guys. And they're very professional guys at the top level in security in the world. And I know that had he have been drinking, had he have been drunk, they would not have allowed him to get in that car. Mm-hmm. And that full stop. And I know that. And it's just a pity that Trevor, he still can't remember a thing to this day. So, you know, we will never know.
What did Trevor... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so all the conspiracy theories about whether he was drunk or not, why did they find all that booze in a 2-bedroom flat days after they'd gone and found a bottle of champagne and half a bottle of liquor that he didn't even like, the toxicology report. There's so many things that don't add up. That's why people have got different opinions on it, you know. But my only opinion is I know that Trevor and Kes would not have allowed him to drive if he was drunk.
Yeah. I mean, what was Trevor's, like, you know, after he got out of the hospital and things like that, and even years later, I mean, what's kind of his mindset around the crash? And, you know, obviously he doesn't remember it, but does he ever blame himself? If you were in that position, how would you feel as well?
Yeah. I mean, I've never really talked to Trevor about that. But I do know when I took him to Dodie's grave, he was really, and he was a frail guy, and I picked him up out of this golf cart, and he's the same size as me, you know, 6'2", you know, quite big guys. He'd lost that much weight, and he was just really struggling to understand why he didn't remember it. And I know he was really concerned about all this thing that's going on in the world, all about him, and he had no memory of it. So I should imagine for Trevor living with that, you know, I don't know how he copes, but I know he's doing really well now, and he works in quite a high position in security. But yeah, possibly the seatbelt issue might be a worry to him or a concern. But I mean, it's done and dusted now, isn't it? It's all gone, and Trevor probably, you know, has come to terms with whatever he needs to come to terms with. I hope he does.
For more news, content, and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.